Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for stopping by and welcome back to another episode of Bygone Days in Blackpool and memories of me growing up in Blackpool. Now, one of the most exciting parts of my childhood was video games. I remember all the arcades. Well, when I was very little, the main arcade was the Olympia. But as I got a little bit older and headed into my teens, I became aware of so many different arcades on the Golden Mile. And suddenly, those machines just didn't have pinball machines, one-arm bandit and old bagatelle machines. They started to have video games. The first one being Space Invaders. And I'm sure most of you have gone in an arcade on the Golden Mile or somewhere in the prom and played Space Invaders and just remember that familiar dun 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 sound the machine would make. And then after every screen, because you'd get so many rows and lines of Space Invaders and you had your little ship, what you either moved around with two buttons, and occasionally some of the machines had a joystick, but they were mainly buttons, and you would fire on all the invaders. But as you started to shoot the Space Invaders, as the screen got less and less, they would get faster and faster, right up until the end when you only had one or two left, and the sound effects would get faster and faster till in the end it'd be like and the little last invader would be hurrying backwards and forwards across the screen until you would hit it and empty the screen. And those games, they were really without end, because once you'd played one screen, the next one would start and it'd be just exactly the same, except it would be a little bit lower. And then if you cleared that one, the next one, same again, rinse and repeat. Same screen, but a little bit lower, till eventually you would get probably a 7th or 8th screen that was so low down they were almost level with your ship. And I could do it, but I wasn't consistently brilliant at doing it. You had to move really fast to the left along the whole row and go shoot, 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 and just get the whole bottom row, because if you didn't get them all really quickly, your game would finish on that screen. And I remember thinking if I could clear that screen, because I'd been on it so many times and never managed to do it, and I remember thinking if I could clear that screen, something will happen. I don't know what I expected, a fanfare, on-screen fireworks, I have no idea. But eventually I did it, and I remember I was like, yes, I did it. And there was about 7 or 8 little kids, because I was in my teens by then, about 14, 15. And when you used to play those games, if you were quite good, little kids would just stand around you and watch you, and there's all these little heads watching me play. And I just cleared it. I was like, yes, I did it. And they all went, yes. And then the next screen started, and it was basically, it went back to the very beginning, a new screen just at the top again, slowly. And it was just like, you don't get anything, you don't win the game, you don't get anything, you just basically play until all your little ships are gone, or until you just get bored. Because I remember sometimes if I was playing, and if I'd got a really good game and I was playing for ages, and once I could clear all the screens consistently and get back when they were on the highest one, if I had 1 or 2 ships left, I would hand the game over to one of the little kids watching. I'd be like, who wants to play my last ship? And they'd all be, me! And I used to just leave the game with one of the little kids, because there's one point when I'd played for ages and I was having a really good game, but I had to go somewhere. I can't remember where it was, but I know I had to be somewhere. And I had about 3 ships left, so I didn't want to leave the game because I was doing really, really well, but I just had to go. It was possibly a job interview or something, but I honestly don't remember. So I went, who wants to finish my game off? And this little kid, boy of around 11 or 12, he went, me! I went, go on then, finish it off. So I handed him the controls, and as I walked away, I heard dun dun dun. when I heard the ship blow up, and I heard dun dun dun, and when the ship blew up again, and I heard all 3 ships blow up as I walked away. So I guess the little guy's game didn't last that long for him. But Space Invaders I used to love, and there was another game I used to like that was called Gorf, and I have pretty much a love-hate relationship with Gorf. You would start off as Space Cadet and basically go, there was a few, there were like different mini games. I think there was one like Galaxian, there was one sort of like Tron, there was one that was like Space Invaders, and I can't remember it actually, but there's probably videos on YouTube of somebody playing Gorf. But you'd get through all the screens and then you'd get promoted. I think you were Space Cadet, Space Soldier, Space Captain, Space Commander, but I know the very last one was Space Avenger. It did get progressively harder, and I always wanted to finish Space Avenger, but for the most part I almost always never did. And the game used to taunt you. It had this robotic voice, and say you was on Space Captain and your last ship died, it would go, ha ha ha, too bad Space Commander, or too bad Space Captain. You'd be like, damn you Gorf. And eventually I got to Space Avenger, and I was like, well, I got to Space Avenger many times, but I only ever completed it once. And it was seat of the pants time because I was on my last man, and all the little pixelated bullets were raining down on my little craft, and I was like, no, and I was playing it, and eventually I clocked it and nothing flipping happened. It just went all the way back to the first one. It just went all the way back to Space Cadet, and I was like, what? I was so wound up. I should have learned after Space Invaders debacle, but no, I thought Gorf would actually give me something because you had an objective, and the objective was to get to Space Avenger. But once you'd got that objective, it just simply went back to the beginning. And I remember just being really annoyed, and because I was annoyed and like agitated, and I'd been playing for a while and my concentration wasn't the best, I died pretty quick. So when I died, it just registered me as dying as a Space Cadet. I was like, but I was actually a Space Avenger, so not a cadet. And another game I love, because there was one more, that was Mrs. Pacman. I occasionally played the normal Pacman, just the original, and I was fairly good at that, but Mrs. Pacman I was good. I can't remember one of the last rounds I could get to. I know the banana fruit round was a difficult one, and there was a pretzel I think, but I could really go on for ages on Mrs. Pacman. Once you get to learn the way the ghost moved, it gets quite easy. And I just loved Mrs. Pacman. So there was Mrs. Pacman, Gorf and Space Invaders, and then another machine came in what everybody likes, and it was called Falcon Apollo, and that was in the Carousel arcade, just on the Golden Mile Promenade, slightly south of Central Pier, I think the Carousel is. And that became one of my all-time favourites because it played great music, and well, great music for its day. Nowadays you'd listen to it and just think, ugh, what's that horrible 8-bit sound? But yeah, I really enjoyed Falcon Apollo, and I was really good at it too. But a load of the kids from my school year used to play, and whilst I was really good at it, I wasn't anywhere close to being the best. There were 2 girls that would come and play it, and they were in my year but not in my class, and they would always get the high score. And sometimes if they hadn't been the arcade that day, I would go in and get the high score, and I'd be like, yeah, high score, but then they would come in and they would kind of obliterate my sadly little attempts to high score. And you just really got to put your name on the screen. Well, you didn't even get to put your name on the screen, it was almost always 3 letters, so I would just put my initials. But the arcades were great. I used to have this little ritual of walking all the way to the end, that was an arcade called Slots of Fun. That was towards South Pier, and then I would go in every arcade along the way. And one of my favourites was the Carousel. Another of my favourites was the one that was in the old lifeboat house. The little lifeboat house that was on the corner of like Lytham Road, close to the prom, near Rigby Road, Lytham Road junction area, you know what I mean. It's still there now, but I think it's a boathouse project now. It's something different. But yeah, the arcades, they were great. And it's weird because they were such a big part of my life growing up, and a lot of the times I would go there even if I only had 110p, or even if I had no money, because I'd go and see my friends if I had no money, and I'd watch people play, because we would all do that. I don't know if I'd describe us all as friends, but I think we were the equivalent of a social media community. You know how you know people on Facebook and Twitter, and you like the tweets and you chat to them, but you don't really know them. But you'd say, well, yeah, they're my online friends. And you sort of kind of count them as friends, but you don't know a lot about them personally. And that's fine, because that is still a valid friendship. But that was sort of like my arcade pals. You go to the arcades often enough, and you see faces you recognise, and you would say hi, hey, oh hey, you play Space Invaders later on, because you would get to know what kind of games they played, and if they were good or not, and then you would watch them play, and sometimes they would watch you play. And for the most part, most of us, I don't think we even knew each other's names. But yeah, so I suppose back then, the arcades was our equivalent of what social media is today, because obviously all that stuff didn't exist back then. Well folks, I hope you enjoyed that little Memories of Blackpool Bygone Days video, and I hope it gave you a few happy memories of your own. So I'm going to close this one up now, so I'm going to say thank you so much for watching. Please leave me a like and a comment, and please hit that subscribe button, and I will see you all very soon in the next video. Goodbye.